going through and assessing readability of thousands and thousands of templates is taking some time. And this is why it's, some of these organizations are a little bit behind the curve.
Welcome to the Digital Customer Communications podcast, where we discover how leading companies engage, retain, and delight customers at scale. Today, we're joined by Karen Peters, an experienced consultant specializing in digital transformation and customer communications management. Karen works with CFAS, a global leader in omnichannel communications. She helps financial services organizations to deliver meaningful and compliant customer communications and experiences. In this episode, we're going to discuss how financial services organizations can adapt to new regulations while eliminating friction in customer journeys to fortify trust. Hi, Karen.
Hello, Sam. Hi.
Great to have you here. Thank you for your time today.
Yep, it's a pleasure to be here, Sam. Thank you.
So let's launch into some questions right from the off. Financial services face increasing regulatory demands, including consumer duty. Let's set the scene a little bit by talking about how these kind of regulations impact customer communications.
Yeah, okay, good. Interesting question. Well, consumer duty has been around now for a little while. July 22, I think, was when it was actually first implemented. And I'm sure everybody out there is fully aware of what consumer duty consists of, the 4 pillars. And, it's actually quite surprising how many organizations are still not actually that compliant. It's quite scary, really, when you do actually drill down a little bit deeper into what consumer duty should represent for the consumer. Any regulation should work hand in glove as far as customer communications and as far as customer experience is concerned. And again, it really is very, very important. It's in fact critical that a financial organization is compliant, but also to raise the level of the customer experience whilst actually dealing with individuals. Regulations are thrown at financial services organizations, on a monthly, weekly, annually, basis. And it's very, very difficult to actually, maintain and keep abreast of all of these new things that are coming out. We could sort of sidetrack off onto the AI Act that's it was put in force in Europe back in August last year. There's lots of things that these organizations, have to adhere to.
So in terms of taking consumer duty as an example, then, what specific things have companies had to change or look out for? And you say they're some of them not still compliant. What are the things that perhaps are catching companies out when it comes to their customer communications?
Okay, yeah. I work with some very large high street names, and it is quite surprising. One of the key factors is the consumer duty was all about positive outcomes for the consumer, and that is the critical thing here. It's a positive outcome. Now, we're all consumers. We all, engage with financial services organizations, and we're probably all very familiar with some of the jargon that actually is spewed out from these organizations. And what we also have to think about is these communications sometimes date back years. When you talk about a customer communication, something that was written in the 1980s is still probably being used today. If it didn't have a regulatory element to it, if it was just a standard piece of communication, there is a possibility that was written a very long time ago. Now, how people spoke in 1990, 1980 is very, very different from how we're engaging with our consumers today. Back in the day, it was very, very formal. Yeah. Now, today, one of the elements of consumer duty is about readability. Actually, the average age, I think, of any piece of communication coming out of financial services has to be at a reading level age of about 11 years old. Now, when you go and actually test those pieces of communication going back for years, it doesn't meet that standard. And this is where consumer duty has been brought in to actually make things more understandable for the individual, for the consumer. And that is one of the critical factors. And when, there is multiple instances, an average high street bank may have around about 15,000 templates. You have to think about the level of complexity that these organizations have to manage. You think about a bank has got all of these products. They have potentially got all of these brands, and under those brands are products, and under those products are sub-products. And when you actually start to look at it like that, you realize exactly how many pieces of communication one organization has to manage in any one given time. So going through and assessing readability of thousands and thousands of templates is taking some time. And this is why it's, some of these organizations are a little bit behind the curve.
Yeah. So we're not talking about regulation that's trying to stop these companies doing things that are necessarily bad, but it's moving on in terms of what we're doing for consumers, for the customer, and especially with regard to communications. We're talking about the difference between when I was a kid, you would receive packs and packs of paper. Like you say, it was very formal. And, the intention there was to give all of the information that a customer needed. The intention was good, but as we've learned more about customer experience and how we interact with brands, and our experience with brands is generally shallower now because we have so many brands to interact with. We're learning more about how to more effectively communicate with customers. So in terms of actually implementing something like that, so say the readability thing, I think you talked when we had a conversation before about the European Accessibility Act, and I think, is that coming in next year?
That's right, yes. It's the European Accessibility Act, and that comes into force in June the 28th, I believe, next year. Now, whilst that is a European Act, and of course we're no longer part of Europe, it goes without saying that it will be enforced within this country as well. And it goes without saying that an awful lot of financial services organisations will have a footprint across Europe anyway. But fundamentally, most importantly, what financial organisation wouldn't want to be inclusive? Yeah. Why would they not want to be inclusive? Why would they try to alienate, or not try to alienate, but why would they potentially alienate? I think there's about just under 500,000 visually impaired people in this country alone. So it's very, very important for them to embrace that, and sooner rather than later. The inclusivity bit is really, really important.
So thousands and thousands of communication that you have to update every time a new regulation comes onto the scene. So take that example, the accessibility regulations. I've got to go through all of my communications as a high street bank.
Okay.
I'm imagining that I'm not going through individual communications these days. I'm going through, like you say, templates in a lot of cases that are then, filled with customer information. Can you just give us a kind of sketch out of how that works at scale?
Yes, sure. When it's really, when I talk to people, it's, you kind of get that light bulb moment when you go, oh yeah, because we're all consumers in our own right. We all receive bank statements, insurance policies, all of that. We've all got that kind of touch point with a financial service organisation. So yeah, but you just get it, you receive it, you don't think anything of it. Nothing whatsoever, until you do a job that I do. When you actually then begin to realise the challenges that are facing these companies. A lot of them are either they're grown through acquisition or even organic growth. Then you go on to a story of legacy back office systems and all of that stuff. And that's another conversation we can touch on. But whilst we're talking about making documents accessible, as a company, as an organisation, you want to do that. You want to enable a consumer to be able to read their own bank statement. They don't want to rely on a family member or a friend. It's very, very highly personal information, and they may not necessarily have the capability for a standard reader like Adobe or something like that, which comes at a cost. But you, as the provider, should provide that capability, shouldn't you? You shouldn't rely on the consumer to go out there and search for it. You, as the provider, should be able to provide that service to your customer. And no, you don't do each individual template. That would be great as far as professional services are concerned. But no, that is not the way it works. There is two ways of doing it. It's either when you create the template, you make that template an accessible template. That's great. moving forward. But what about all of the historical stuff that you've got? You do that post-production. So that's something that's done post-production, and it's not done in an individual template. It's done as a batch run. So yeah, it's not as complicated as what you think. It's something that will improve the customer experience because you are enabling a element of your clients to be able to, actually read the information that you're sending to them. So yeah, it's something that you'll see on a lot of websites. It's not just pieces of information that need to be accessible. It's apps that need to be accessible. It's websites that need to be accessible. All of these things need to be addressed. And yeah, the cutoff date is the 28th of June this year.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I mentioned letters earlier, which I suppose we still think of letters as a primary form of communication, mainly really in financial services, but not in many other sectors. And then you've got your apps and your websites or your web apps and, all emails, all these other things. So in terms of, like you say, it's very simple. It sounds like something that should be very simple, but once you factor in all these channels and once you factor in, like you say, legacy technologies, perhaps fractured databases, it sounds like something that can get very complex very quickly. So how are these companies going about, or how should they go about creating a true kind of omni-channel experience for, say, one piece of communication?
Yeah, okay. But that is one of the magic keys, actually. As I said, acquisition, organic growth, all of those kind of complexities create a bit of a monster. You may have you have a current account with a bank, then you have a loan with that bank, then you have a pension with that bank, then you may have, I don't know, an insurance policy with that bank. So you've got all of these products. You're an ideal customer because they've got you. But how do they retain you? You call up and you want to talk about your loan or what's the settlement figure. Yeah, so you're through to that department. And then you say, oh, by the way, can I talk about this? My car insurance. Oh, well, sorry, Sam, I'm going to have to transfer you to somebody else. Now, that is when friction starts. And we are in a cancel culture. That we are in a cancel culture because some of the very large brands out there have got it right. The likes of Amazon, the likes of Booking, all of that, they have got it very good and they have done it spot on. And you cannot fault the customer experience that those organizations deliver, where you can fault some of the financial services organizations that you talk to because of that kind of friction. So how are they dealing with it? One of the key things is to have a joined up preference management system. So, and this will not only enable you for say a call center or something like that, when you call in, for them to be able to reference across the product portfolio that you hold, it will also understand what touch points and what channel you want pieces of communication to be delivered in. If you start with a portal and that's for your insurance document, but you don't want to go through a portal for your pension, you actually want to see physical pieces of paper, those preferences need to be managed. And that is one of the golden keys. And it's called a golden record. And that is one of the major things that I think, people, organizations are working towards it, because everywhere you go, it's all about the customer experience. It's not about, when I joined this world, it was CCM, customer communication management. People don't even really know what that is anymore. It's all about customer experience. But again, that's a very vague kind of mantle. What is the customer experience? But fundamentally, it's all about the interaction between the consumer and the provider.
Yeah, it's like digital. You can't really use digital to preface anything anymore because it's part of the world that we live in. It's just implied. The customer experience has to be digital and analog enabled for, vulnerable customers and people that make that choice. In terms of the regulations, and coming back to that, we deal with things like GDPR, personal data, a lot. In terms of high street banks and large financial services institutions and, filling templates with someone's information, that could be quite sensitive. So if I'm filling in a statement or, whether that's a bank statement or kind of an annual statement for a pension, that's very sensitive information. How do they go about storing that, filling it? What kind of challenges do they have to overcome to get the data in the right place?
Personalization is one of the hot topics as far as customer communications is concerned. And you've probably done it yourself. You get something through the letterbox. You look at it. You don't even open the envelope because you know it's not going to be relevant to you. So you just rip it up and throw it in the bin. Yeah. What's the impact of that? One, that organisation doesn't know you, so why should you bother with them? So that's damaging their brand a little bit. Two, the cost of that, you're just one of probably millions. So that's very damaging. The environment is also impacted on that. So hyper-personalisation in financial services is critical. But as you rightly said, GDPR, and you're dealing with very, very sensitive information. So one of the things is it's minimisation. So it's the minimal pieces of elements of data as possible, and total transparency. Any consumer has to have absolute faith and trust in the organisation that they're dealing with. So they don't want to receive irrelevant pieces of information, because if you're receiving irrelevant pieces of information, what else are they doing with your data? So the minimal amount of data to be held on you, but also to have a very, very clear preference management system that holds the relevant data to you, and that data is then just used for you. So that is where personalization is becoming more and more and more relevant for sustainability, for ethical, for cost, and for actual brand as well.
So it sounds like the key is to have a centralized place where you're storing all of your customer data to enable all of these experiences, as well as to enable the adherence to regulation like GDPR with preferencing. How does a company, obviously most of financial services companies that scale aren't going from 0 to 1, but say, they make an acquisition where there's legacy systems involved, or there is a new regulation like the Accessibility Act, and they have to get from point A to point B where there isn't this holistic management experience, and they have to go where they have to make their way towards it. How does that process work?
Yeah, it's a journey. It's very much a journey, because what I've just described is, utopia. And utopia very rarely exists. So, there is huge challenges. Some organisations, and I often say this, you're stood at the end of the cliff and you're wondering whether to jump or not. Have I got a parachute and will it open? Because doing a big bang approach never works. It never works. It's you've got too many investors in something of that magnitude. But what you do have with regards to technology, again, I always say don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If something is actually working, keep it. Just because it's not, of either cloud native or whether it is an on-prem old solution, but it is still delivering the business need, then keep it. But you can get these wonderful things like REST APIs and hooks that will actually hook in together, and you can create your utopia, but it's not all clean and bright and shiny. It's it's an amalgamation of what your footprint, what your estate looks like. But what you've got to have is that vision of what it is that you need to deliver, and then make the most of what you've got. Because unfortunately, the days of writing checks for millions of pounds are not there. The clearest and the easiest way is obviously to be cloud native. That is, the way forward. But again, there has been resistance. But, I work again with another global bank, very, very conservative, and they just will not entertain the cloud. Crazy, but they won't entertain the cloud. So they are dealing with some very, very old, heavily bespoke back office systems, and that is a challenge. And we're just trying to work a way forward to deliver a digital statement, because they have to do it. But it's not as easy as just introducing a digital output, because they can't do that at the moment.
And is that resistance coming from, is that a principles thing, or is it more a cost and resourcing thing?
It's a cultural thing.
Right.
Let's put it that way. It's a cultural thing. And you will find that when you deal, across the globe with different organisations, we sometimes get very, very blinkered. We work in the city, there's, a UK company. That's not the way all organisations work. So you have to keep your eyes and mind open as to how to support something that you think is just second nature. Yeah. So again, when people like myself are dealing with these organisations, you, as I say, you have to just make that assessment as what is the objective here, and how do we get there? And it's not necessarily an ABCD route. It's sometimes it can be very different, but we just need to meet that objective.
And conservative organizations, if they were conservative about cloud, would be conservative about, other developments like AI that are around at the moment. What kind of, I mean, AI really jumps to mind when you say things like, editing or managing data at scale and filling templates at scale and making changes at scale. AI is something that can help us do all that. But obviously in financial services, possibly the most difficult place to implement AI because of all the regulation and personal data. So what kind of opportunities do you see it presenting, I guess, now? And what kind of opportunities do you see in the future for financial services?
Okay. If I don't get at least 10 emails a day about AI in my inbox, I'm surprised. It is the conversation of today. Even as recent as this week, the UK government announced £14 billion to be injected into AI. And look at the amount of job opportunities that will create. One of the comments that came out of the report that I read was the UK needs to be an AI maker, not an AI taker, which I thought that was quite snappy actually. So quite unusual for a politician to come out and say.
Initiative, yeah.
Yeah. Now, and again, a key thing is the AI European Act came out August last year. There is no UK AI Act as yet. So they're going through discussions. I think there's been 50 elements of what possibly will be contained within a piece of legislation in the UK, but it is actually quite scary that there is no UK AI Act as we stand today. Clearly that there has to be guardrails put in place. AI needs to be regulated. The possibilities are endless, and there is fantastic opportunity for AI within not only financial services, not only within the UK, but also within customer communications as well. There has to be guardrails put in place. We have to ensure that it is not discriminatory. We have to ensure that it's not biased, particularly, say, for a loan assessment or something like that. We have to ensure that those guardrails are in place, because that would blow things out of the water. And, there's been so much speculation in the press and all the rest of it. People of a certain demographic think AI is going to take over the world. I work in technology, completely and 100% embrace it. I think it's fantastic. And when it comes to customer communication, you think about content authoring. You think about that. You have a new product that you want to take to market, an online banking app solution or something like that. You can have all this marketing material actually just delivered to your inbox, to your desktop. And I always say, keep the human in the loop whenever I'm talking about AI, because it's really, really important to always have that judgment call. The possibilities and the capabilities are, absolutely infinitum, but it does need to keep a human in the loop. As far as where it will go, if you think that the UK are going to invest 15 billion, where do you think it's going to go? It's not going to go backwards, and it's not going to disappear. It's here, and we need to treat it and work with it. It's a work harder, smarter, and better. That's what AI will deliver in whatever area you think that it can be implemented.
Yeah. And obviously there are some situations that are concerned with less regulated data or less personal data than others. Like you say, creating marketing content isn't as sensitive as delivering statements and things like that. Are you seeing that actually used on the ground today then in that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I can give you a real life example where it's being used within an HR department, and it can assess all of the HR policies to ensure that they are being adhered to against employees. So, it's taking mundane manual tasks and removing that. And I sold robotic process automation 10 years ago, RPA. This is a glorified RPA, if you like. And it is, because again, everybody was frightened that it would just cause all these redundancies. This is where your business case comes in. You're going to lose headcount, and that's going to buy you a little robot. And my approach was always, you will lose headcount for that role, but that person, that team can then be delivering higher value, which Also, it gives the mundane tasks away. It creates more employee value as well. The employee feels more valued by delivering a more valuable task. So, there's so many benefits from it, but it's how it's managed and it's how it's implemented.
And is that something that, I know a lot of what you do is you help companies on board with your customer communications management solution. Is that something that's integrated into these solutions, or would it be used as a third-party connector app at the moment?
Both. I would say both. So say, for example, to meet consumer duty, you want to analyse 500 documents and assess the reading level of those 500 documents. AI could be introduced to do that. So when you've got a very formal with regards to, when you're phrasing a document like that, because that document was created in 1982, you want to be more familiar. You want to be more relevant to today's way of speaking. AI can do that for you, rather than some poor little person sat there trawling through and going, all right, okay, we need to change that. We need to change this. It can just be run through and it'd be done. Again, keep the human in the loop to do the final assessment, but AI does the donkey work. So that's one, and AI can be implemented within a customer communication management composition tool, or you can use a third-party AI tool. So again, it's both.
Interesting. And in terms of managing your communications, then, just to wrap up, these are not small projects. Integrating all of your channels, all of your templates for your communications into one holistic database to customer experience. This is sometimes 5-6 years of a project. What are the biggest challenges that people come across in rolling these projects out? And what advice do you have for companies in getting ahead faster?
Okay, so look, I try to reference real life experiences of again, when you're looking at a financial organisation, a big bank or something like that, they're not going to have one composition tool. You can guarantee that they're going to have multiple composition tools in situ. So what have we got here? So we've got 5. What are they? They're all on premise. You've got a very big carbon footprint there. So, you need to tick your sustainability, and profitability, and cost kind of boxes there. What do? We look at, one thing we can do is we can export all of those existing templates. So that's a lift and a shift. Is that the right way forward? Not necessarily, because what's the adage? Garbage in, garbage out. So what do you want to do? So the thing is, when you're dealing with projects like this, is you do take them one at a time. Don't do the big bang. We've currently, we've just finished a project with a interactive composition tool. So that was replacing a very, very old, outdated legacy system that could not deliver digital communications. It had no upgrade path, and they were being charged extortionate extended support. So they were hemorrhaging money, basically. So that had to go. And again, there was about 1,500 templates actually sat within this old legacy system. Now, when I talk about interactive composition, that is when you as a consumer phones a call center and the call center agent asks you a number of questions regarding whatever you're calling about, and that call center agent will then eventually come to the right document that will be sent out to you to answer your question, whatever that question may have been. So you're going through a few interview screens to actually get, so that the call center agent actually can't send anything out that has not been signed off, that has not been approved by marketing, that has not been approved by the regulatory bodies, anything like that. So but they may have a bit of capability to do some free text in there. So this was a very large project. So we've got 1,500 letters that we need to now move into our new system. So what you do, you go through a rationalization process on the old system. You get rid of all of the drafts, all of the duplicates, because over time that's what happens. And it's incredible that those 1,500 templates end up being 600, because you've got so many duplications, you've got so many that aren't relevant to today's, to today's BAU, that those 1,500 go down to 600. And then we can just migrate the 600 into the new system. And we've run through AI, we've run through simplification of language, we've run through all of that, and we've delivered, just nice and bright and shiny. I'm not saying that it wasn't difficult or challenging, because it was, but that is the process that you would go through. And they've gone live, and things things are working. And now we've got another 6 or 7 to tick off the list, and they're reducing their footprint. They're moving on to a cloud native platform. So they're removing all of this support and maintenance out, so that they're cost saving. They're delivering a better service to their customers. They're delivering simplified language. They're delivering accessibility, and they're delivering communication across all of the consumers' touch points that they want to be communicated through. So it sounds easy when you talk about it, but believe me, that there is challenges. But that's the steps that you need to take to get to that particular point.
So taking it step by step, knowing exactly what you want to achieve, and making the right decisions about tech based on that, what you want to achieve, rather than just the kind of, well, I guess, like you say, the shininess thing.
Yeah.
Have they got a shiny website?
It's, again, any project, any project, you have to have sponsors. And what is important to one sponsor may not be so important to another sponsor. So you need to ensure that those sponsors are all in agreement. You're fully aware of what those objective is. That's not important to me, but this is important to me. You need to understand that. And and the layer above that is that cascading down through the channels to the people that are actually doing the work. Because if it's not important to me as a CEO, why the heck should it be important to me as a call center agent? So you have to get the buy-in. Projects will fail if software, it needs to be nurtured and loved, and it really does. Because if say a developer of a composition tool, if he does not want to work with that piece of software, then you've got a huge problem. And this is all about buy-in, and that's all about cascading from the top down to ensure that everybody is involved in this whole process. Because change is never easy. Change is sometimes not liked, but if change has been decided, then that needs to happen in the best way possible. Yeah.
But if you tell people that don't work in software that you work at a software company, they think it's all software. But at the enterprise level, it's definitely very much about people and politics, especially when you're helping companies to deploy tech. It's, collaboration is one of the most important things.
And communication as well. Communicating out, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, and this is how it's going to happen. And we need you. We need you to support it.
So communicate to us what's going on at CFAS. What are you excited about? That was a terrible segue, I know. What are you excited about this year, and where can we find you personally and CFAS online if people want to get in touch?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, my link, obviously clearly on LinkedIn, Karen Peters. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. CFAS Innovation. Yeah, please go and visit our website where you'll see exactly what it is that we do and who we do it for. The majority of our clients are in financial services. It is our sweet spot because, there is communication overload as far as financial services is concerned. This year is 2025. There is a few key things. Accessibility is just all I'm talking about at the moment. People, we've attended events and, it's surprising how many of our competitors actually aren't delivering it. And we've been doing it since 2014, actually. We're a French company and they've been doing it for a very long time. So accessibility is one of our key things, and AI. We can't not talk about AI and about how it can actually really deliver true value to customer communications.
You can't ignore your emails, basically, you're saying, about AI.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you today. Thank you so much, Karen Peters. We'll speak to you soon.
Okay, thank you, Sam. My pleasure.